For more than 10 days, the country has been gripped by anti-regime protests, arguably the biggest since 2009. Most of the protesters are women. They are opposing Iran's hijab mandate. The trigger for these demonstrations was a custodial death. 22-year-old Mahsa Amini died after being arrested by the morality police. Her identity became the reason for her death. First, her identity as a woman. And second, her identity as a Kurd. The Kurds are the third largest ethnic group in Iran. They make up 10% of the total population. Most of them live in the western part of Iran, near the border with Iraq. The regime in Iran treats them as second-class citizens. So Amini's death has galvanized the Kurdish population. Let me show you some pictures from Saturday. These are Kurdish protesters from the city of Erbil in Iraq. Most of them are Iranians living in exile. They were chanting slogans and holding up banners against the Iranian regime.
As Iranian Kurdish women, we are oppressed by the government of the gallows. They oppressed her 2 times, once because she's a Kurdish and second time because she's a woman. Over the last 4-5 days, there are killings all over Iran. They're killing us to oppress our voices.
Guess how the regime responded? With brute force. Iran's Revolutionary Guards have launched airstrikes on northern Iraq. The first strike was on Saturday. It was followed by another strike on Monday. That's 2 lethal attacks in 3 days. According to Iraqi officials, Iran bombarded their villages for 8 hours. What is their justification? Well, Iran says they are targeting Kurdish separatists. Now, there is some truth to these claims. Northern Iraq is home to several Iranian opposition groups. Some of them also operate paramilitary outfits. In the past, Iranian guards have struck inside this Kurdish territory. In 2018, they launched ballistic missiles at the offices of a Kurdish political party. 18 people were killed. In March this year, they hit the residence of a Kurdish businessman in Erbil. Several people were injured. Iran considers Kurdish groups as separatists and terrorists, and right now they feel these groups are stirring the anti-hijab protests, even sending weapons across the border. The demonstrations have been the strongest in northwestern Iran. This area is the stronghold of Iran's Kurdish population. But the question is, how accurate is this claim? Let's examine it. First, take a look at this map. See those cities marked over Iran? Those are the major protest sites in the country. And as you can see, they are not limited to the northwest. For example, Mashhad. It is a city in the northeast dominated by Persians. And then you have Shiraz. It is located in the south and again dominated by Persians. So the argument that these protests are orchestrated by Kurdish separatists is not valid. There is genuine anger among the people, particularly the women. These protests are predominantly driven by the women of Iran. Yes, the Kurdish identity is valid, but the major demand is linked to freedom of choice for women. And having said that, Amini's death has also exposed the fault lines in the country. Iran's constitution provides equal rights to all ethnicities. Their language, their culture, their cuisine, everything is protected by the constitution. But in practice, that's not the case. Iran's minorities are treated as second-class citizens, especially the Kurds, the Arabs, and the Balochis. And this has created resentment against the Iranian regime. Some members of these communities have taken up arms against the state. So Iran feels their retaliation is justified. In fact, this is classic Iranian strategy. Blame so-called outside forces for their own failures. Iran is accusing the United States of trying to hijack these protests, of violating Iran's sovereignty. They have also slammed the European Union for its criticism. Do you see the problem here? Iran is blaming everyone under the sun for this unrest. The Kurds, the US, the Europeans. But they are refusing to accept the root cause, their own regressive laws. And until they do that, the public anger will not subside. So far, the crackdown has claimed the lives of around 50 people. More than 1,200 have also been arrested. So the regime is in no mood to make concessions. Instead, it is using these protests to crack down further, especially on women and Kurds. For both these groups, the last few weeks have reaffirmed their position in Iranian society. It is one of suppression and neglect. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.